Welcome to the Secure Connections podcast, brought to you by IOTA, the Internet of Things Security Services Association. I'm Brian Sherman, Content Director for IOTA, and your host for today's discussion. And I'm pleased to welcome back a frequent contributor to the podcast, Art Gross, CEO of Secure Now. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the risks associated with the transition to a work-from-home environment, as well as some of the best practices MSPs should be implementing to strengthen their clients' cybersecurity posture. Welcome back to the Secure Connections podcast, Art.
Hey, Brian, it's great to see you and great to be here. And, I was thinking I like your beard. I haven't seen the beard in real life. And
the COVID beard, as we refer to it. Yeah, it's a little grayer than normal, but sunshine is part.
The last few months, everyone's got a little more gray hair. And then
yeah, I want to blame the sunshine. At least we have sunshine this time of year. That's a good thing.
Yep.
Awesome. So one thing I want to start with is, how is the business community faring in your part of New Jersey? Because you're kind of in one of the hardest hit areas, that tri-state area. Where are you on the COVID-19 reopening scale for your business?
So New Jersey's in its phase 2 out of 3. And, if we would have talked a week and a half ago, things were well on its way to maybe putting, this behind us from a business perspective. But, talking to our partners with the spike in cases down in Florida and Texas, people are starting to get a little worried again and wondering if, does this thing ever end, so to speak, from a business perspective, not from a buyer. I think the virus will be with us for a while, but I'm thinking, what I'm hearing from partners is that, they're starting to worry that, the brakes on the economy may be applied again. So people are very cautious. I think cautiously optimistic. How's that? We're better than we were, but, I don't think anyone thinks things are going to go back to the way they were anytime soon.
Yeah, and I think that when you look from a cash flow perspective, sometimes the fallout takes a while before it really kicks in. And I know there even the good news, however you take it, is we're also looking at additional stimulus packages, which we hope will continue to fuel some investment from companies.
A lot of our partners actually did fairly well in the beginning, because there was a huge push, and we're going to talk about it, to work from home. And that was a lot of labor, a lot of setups, a lot of, buying of laptops and video cameras. So all of that push to get people at home. Actually, some of our partners said they had their best months of the year in the last couple of years. So there's feast and famine that goes along with it. But long term, as the economy, lingers, and if it doesn't come back strong, it could definitely impact cash flow and some of our, some of the MSP communities, cash flow and revenue.
Right. Well, and one area where I'm hearing, that can help, I think, cash flow for end clients is this whole work from home situation. I think many were reluctant to move their employees to home until, governments made them move their employees to home.
Exactly.
And, there's obviously, it's not a utopia that every employee is going to do well and every job lends itself. I think they said, I read a couple articles where about 50 to 60% of jobs today could at least be done partially from remotely, and it probably built confidence. I think that's the one thing, talking to MSPs, that I found is their clients are getting more confident that, I can do this. And guess what? If we're crunched for cash, we don't need all this real estate, which is very expensive in many areas, especially your area.
Totally agree. I think what you said is exactly right. People were reluctant. I have heard MSPs, I don't think this is going to be long term. People have to work in the office. I laugh at that. And I've run an IT company for 20 years remotely. We don't have an office. I've run a cybersecurity company for 10 years remotely, and we're up to 50 employees. So I know if you have remote work in your DNA, it is absolutely possible. But people who are, worked in offices don't view that. Although as time goes on, we're starting to see, this can work. It can work. And I think what we're going to see long term is a hybrid. There's going to be an office, but maybe smaller office space. There can be work at home. There's going to be people who work at home 50% of the time or more. There are going to be people working in the office, maybe a rotation, so you're not putting too many people together. So I look at work from home as a long-term trend that is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, create maybe more flexible workspace. So they have half as many offices, but they're not assigned to a particular individual
Exactly.
or,
Yep.
yeah, but the good news for MSPs is we're seeing this already is that can be additional equipment. They're upgrading their equipment. Their security obviously is an important
Yep.
area.
Yep.
And the software applications. There's a lot of good things from an MSP perspective from this,
Right.
although endpoints may increase that they have to manage as well. So they
Yep.
have to look at that pricing. Are they really getting, are they losing money on some of these accounts? Sure.
Yeah, I think they definitely have to look at their pricing and look at support, because you no longer are going into one office to do an on-site support, right?
Sure.
Now you have 50 employees working at their house and they're having problems connecting. What strain does that come onto your MSP that you have to go and support that? So I think as we look at work from home as a long-term shift, the support, the tools that we use as MSPs, the support model may have to shift along with it, and maybe for the better in terms of more revenue. And if a client is saving on office space, they should be paying for the remote support that is required. So MSPs have to look really hard at this whole model and see how that impacts them and potentially how they provide support to remote workers.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd love to see like charting out where now their support structure is gone, where it was in one central building, is
Yep.
how far now is their ecosystem for a single client?
Exactly.
And how do they change their pricing for support to do that? Yeah, because you could literally add thousands of miles a
Yep.
month
Exactly.
for a larger client.
And as a remote company, we have employees across the country, across the world, actually. Some of our developers are international. So it's like, it's no longer, drivable. It's now, how do I support that marketing person in California and I'm in New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
And companies can use this, work from home to get talent across the world.
Sure.
But you have to provide that support, which it's going to make MSPs have to really evaluate how they handle those clients.
And form partnerships with other MSPs. Yep. And through their
Yep.
peer communities. Yeah, I could see where that would, and you may have people that want to relocate and still work for the same company too. So yeah, it opens up the options. It really does. But yeah, MSPs are probably going to have to be even more flexible, but really
Yep.
spend some time digging down. I want to set the stage on one area too, because we haven't really dug into this a whole lot since the whole pandemic, but I realize employee training is a crucial part of every organization's cybersecurity protection scheme, not just today, but it has been, and I think increasingly so over the last 2 years.
Yep.
We've seen a huge uptick. How does the process vary in a work from home setting?
Yeah. Just to talk from work from home and this whole environment, this is, if I'm a cyber criminal, I'm a hacker, this is like the best thing that ever happened. You think about it. You have people that have been, moved from their office at home. Some people are, sitting in their bedrooms or living rooms or basements, working in a different surroundings. You have virus and all the fears going around about the virus, about COVID. You have, all the SBA loans and the economy impact. You have, unemployment, all these scams. It's cyber criminals have really ramped up their attack on businesses, individuals, along with new tools, video conferencing, where, a lot of people didn't use video conferencing before, or Teams or Slack or those kind of, collaboration tools. You put that all together, and the chance of an employee being tricked and being, a cyber criminal victim increases dramatically. So, I think the environment we have right now may be the most dangerous environment we've seen in years, if not ever. All right. So that just sets the stage that, that you have a lot of potential for attack, and you have a lot of employees that, are using new tools or are in a new environment, and they could definitely fall for, phishing attacks and scams and ransomware, et cetera. So I think, just to look at it, it's definitely an issue.
It's a very volatile environment too. I mean, you look at tax season has changed. So you've got, if you're a business, you got tons of information coming in on new updates and when this is due and that's due.
Yep.
It would be so easy to slip in a phishing scam that looks just like the official documents. And then you've got all the individual states, counties, municipalities sending out updates on COVID-19 is, you're
Yep.
right. It's
And you think about the PPP loans, right? There was a mad rush to try to get, a piece of that. The banks weren't ready. They were calling people on cell phones over the weekend. You didn't know whether you were actually talking to the bank. You didn't know whether you were talking to a criminal, but you're desperate to get those funds and you're giving up information. It was a field day. And to say the truth, as you said, there may be more stimulus. So there's more chance of people being tricked into different things and being victims. So it is a scary environment for individuals and definitely for businesses.
so on the training, what types of things have been introduced differently? Would you say that had been done, before the whole COVID-19, even before we even thought about the word COVID-19? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. The thing that we really have been successful is educating our partners, and helping them educate clients that workers from home are at risk. For one, the environment that we talked about. Two, using new tools, and going to clients and letting them know this is a dangerous situation. So if anything, it's actually pushed, just like working at home has pushed video conferencing. We're seeing that work from home is actually pushing security training, and clients are more susceptible or more receptive to training their employees and rolling out our program. The good news is, ours was always a portal-based, very video-friendly environment that, makes it very easy to deploy it, whether someone's in the office or whether someone's, sitting at home. So it wasn't, it's not in-person training. So it really helps to have that type of platform that you can easily train people, whether they're at home or the office.
So, and I think that the one thing you lose in an office too is they're used to oversight. People are used to that structure. You take them out of that structure,
right?
It's so easy to get lax in so many areas.
Totally.
I mean, I've been working, in a remote environment. I have an office, but honestly, I've worked from home many times too. But for the last 15 years,
right.
You get, but I'm also, when you're self-employed, it's different. You're motivated. But if you're working for someone else, it's so easy to let things go by and not follow it.
And you feel a sense of safety at home, right? This is my home, I'm safe. But that doesn't mean that you can't fall for a phishing email. It doesn't mean that you can't fall for someone calling you on your cell phone. It doesn't mean that you can't fall for some sort of business email compromise. So I think not being in the office lowers people's guard a little bit. And which is part of our messaging of why we still need to really concentrate on training these employees, especially in their new environment, especially with the risks that we've been talking about.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the biggest risks you've seen over the last couple of months? What do you think is different?
Well, just the amount of scams that are happening from the different pieces. But the other piece that we're seeing, and this is really scary, is a lot of MSPs have rolled out VPNs into the corporate network. You have an employee who falls for a scam, a phishing, and that turns into ransomware. They have a direct connection right back into the network. So even though they're at home, they could be impacting the corporate data just like they would if they're in the office. So ransomware continues to be a problem. Phishing continues to be a problem. Then you have SMS phishing now. So it's everything just magnified, I would say 10, 20 times of what we saw pre-COVID.
Just what a business owner needs now is more things to worry about, right? Not just the financial, but
and it's really and the other thing we're seeing is that the business owner themselves are now. We were talking about the SBA loans. We're talking about unemployment loans. All of them, they've become a target just as much as the frontline worker, so to speak. So, the business owners and HR and finance have to be very, very careful and very, very aware of the different scams that are out there and different ways of becoming victims.
And I don't think I mean, it's not vertical specific as far as where the risks are rising, but seeing a lot of attacks on municipalities in particular, hospitals right now,
Yep.
those that are the most vulnerable seem to
It's,
be getting hit at the hardest.
yeah, and vulnerable, and it's the ones that really haven't invested in cybersecurity. They haven't invested in training. They haven't invested in the cybersecurity, from endpoints to all the different pieces that are needed in a layered approach. So they're being attacked and they're falling victims, and it's scary. We're seeing those industries are starting to adopt more from a training point of view, and hopefully they'll continue through with other cybersecurity implementations.
Yeah, but they're not obviously they're not the only ones that are going to be targeted. But it shows you, if these companies that have invested a lot in cybersecurity measures over the last few years are still getting hit and targeted, that normal SMB that may not fit in, the high risk categories, they're still a risk too. They're that lower hanging fruit almost at that point.
Totally, and and it is. They've invested in cybersecurity, but one of the things, and this is one of the reasons we're talking, is they haven't invested a lot in training employees, right? And when you think about it, if we didn't have a human problem, we probably wouldn't have a cybersecurity problem. Yet, right? I mean, 90% of breaches are all caused by like human mistakes, and when you think about it, we've invested in antivirus and firewalls and patching and all of the things, the technology pieces, but we kind of just said, let's not worry about, I don't care about training my employees, yet they're the ones that are causing, all of this. So, there's lots of industries that have invested a lot of money in technology, and yet their employees who make the mistakes have not really been, properly secured. So, that trend is starting to pick up. We're starting to get that messaging out there. And, as an owner of Breach Secure Now, I'm very happy that that trend's happening, but we really have to focus on employees along with all the other technology. But, that's got to be one of the layers of security.
Yeah. Well, we've been preaching security for a long time, and this is the time when MSPs are really, making good ground with it.
Yep.
What are some of your recommendations for those providers who are trying to get their clients on board with employee cyber training?
Yep.
For those that haven't done it, and I'm hoping that a large amount have already done it, but what about those holdouts?
Well, we have about 1,500 partners, and although they believe in cybersecurity and training and the things that we provide, it's hard convincing those clients, and they've struggled. Now, the good news is, because people are working from home, and because of all the scams, we have seen an uptake of training. And really, what we tell our partners is keep showing the facts, right? It show that there are more risks at workers from home, show that there are more risks of scams, that phishing emails have increased. So, use this opportunity, because at the same time, business owners are insecure at the moment. They don't know about their business. They don't know about, the virus. They're very, they understand that this is a very dangerous environment for, in terms of business and personal, especially with the virus. And so they're more receptive to hearing, this information. So you have to just keep developing, marketing content and the message that drives this home. Your employees are now at home. They're a risk. We need to train them. Because before it was like, well, your employees are at work, they're a risk. Yeah, we heard that before. We ignored it. But now it's actually, they've shifted. Now we're using new tools, and we're doing video conferencing. Business owners now feel that this is different. And now explaining that this is risky, being at home and all of these scams, they are listening and actually saying, okay, maybe we should train these employees and focus on that. So there's a great opportunity right now.
Yeah. So much like credentials, they need to enable their employees to, especially in remote site,
Absolutely.
give them the tools they need, the information that they need.
Yep.
What do you think is the biggest objection still?
It's the thought of, well, don't we have antivirus and firewalls, and aren't we secure? I'm not going to be a victim. They're not targeting me. It's the same mindset we had before. This allows maybe a little bit of a crack in the door to get your foot in and then really push hard. So, it's a typical, and any security vendor, any MSP will give you the same answer. It is just hard to convince SMBs that they have to worry about cybersecurity. They still have the mindset, this is the hospitals and the municipalities, which are really small businesses. These are the bigger guys and not me. So, that remains the obstacle. And, slowly we're pushing and pushing. And if we can break down that barrier, then, we can secure all of these businesses. But, that will remain our biggest obstacle, MSP's business biggest obstacle for the next, foreseeable future.
I think I may have mentioned to you previously, is I remember, I hate to date myself, but like 25 years ago,
Yep.
I worked for a Fortune 500 company, and we did this regularly, monthly back then. Everybody thinks that it's a new thing, but it's not. I think the big companies have been doing it for a long, long time.
Right.
We also had multi-factor authentication back in those
Yep.
days. And
Yep.
so, and then I went into the SMB space, and it's like, yeah, we don't do any of that stuff. And now
Yeah,
it's all coming back. So
Yep, exactly.
it's amazing. So tell me too, what's the onboarding process look like for an MSP and their clients for doing cyber training?
What we've tried to do is make it as easy to deploy, as easy to roll out. So you want definitely integration with Azure Active Directory Sync and Active Directory. You want to be able to take that and automate it. So you can get a client, sync up at Active Directory, send out welcome messages, and have the system feed that to employees. So what we've really done is take a lot of the labor out, because when you think about it, MSP's got enough stuff to do, right? And we want to be able to deploy training, in a very automated fashion. Same thing with phishing. Simulated phishing is a great way of teaching employees how to prevent, how to spot and prevent falling for phishing. So, we've set up automated phishing as well. So you can set it up for a year and just forget it, and the system sends it out. So we've really tried to reduce the amount of work from an MSP perspective. From a client perspective, it's very important to engage them right in the beginning, right? Because as you said, big companies are doing training, but we've all sat. I worked at Merck years ago, and we've all sat in those training classes that were just boring, and they were PowerPoint presentations. And what we realized is you have to make this engaging. It's got to be video based. It's got to be a lot of gamification, and make it interesting and make it competitive. So that is very important right from the beginning, to explain to employees what you're doing. And why they're getting trained, and then get them engaged right in the beginning and make it very interesting. We find it's amazing, because we have like a leaderboard, and we give every employee an employee secure score, and we actually have employees getting really pissed off when their employee secure score drops. I can't believe it went down, and I'm now number 3. And I smile, because when we came up with this, we wanted that exact thing. We wanted people to feel engaged, and I love when people complain about that, because they care, and so it's important to really make it so those employees are engaged right from the beginning.
That makes sense. How can MSPs ensure that the end users are following the programs? What type of controls do you get when you're a partner with Secure Now?
So, what we do is, for the employee, we give them an employee secure score, and we give them an anonymous leaderboard. So they use screen names, and they can see where they rank. Mm-hmm. From the MSP perspective, from management perspective at a client, we give every employee not only their employee secure score, but a risk level. So now you can see that there's 10 high risk employees, and 5 medium risk, and 3 low risk. You can see that they have a phishing fail rate of 25%. They've been involved in 10 breaches. So we know they're going to be targeted. We know they click on, a quarter of every single email that's been sent to them. We give that optics into, look at this employee, high risk because of these things. So that, it allows you to have conversations with management. We're rolling this out. This employee is ignoring this, or this employee needs more training. This really helps the conversation with client, because the great for quarterly business reviews, you can say, phishing fail rate started at 25%. We've gotten down to 12 and we'll continue to, make it lower. But the thing is, even with that, it's down to 12%. That means your employees are falling for phishing emails. Simulated phishing, they're going to fall for real phishing emails. So that drives a conversation for two-factor authentication, disaster recovery, ransomware, cyber insurance. So we really believe that focusing on the employee and showing the ongoing risk that they still present, even with training, because employees make mistakes, they're humans, that drives additional cybersecurity sales. So a long answer to that, but giving that insight, and then also having those ongoing conversations with a client.
I have a good friend who does IT for a large security or a large insurance company, this local where I went, Matt, and part of their employee evaluations every year are actually now electronic, their electronic policies. How did they do as far as their, working from home with various things? Because they have a large work from home office. It's actually a category in their employee assessments, which I think is pretty cool. He's like, yeah, I have to evaluate employees. I'm an IT guy, but I have to give them a list of here's what they do as far as training and other things. So it's becoming more common. Again, it's a large company, but that's not to say smaller companies shouldn't be adopting similar practices.
I mean, if you think about that, we've had employees, if you have 50 employees, you've never had the insight that Betty or John or Brad is actually a risk to you. You hope, as a small business owner, you hope that they don't make mistakes. You hope that they don't give out their passwords or reuse passwords. You never had a way of seeing it. So by giving those scores and those risk levels, you actually are giving management insight into employees they've never had before.
And it gives you ability to coach certain things now too, as opposed to saying we're just going to penalize them. We can go, okay, here's the specific things we need you to do. That's
funny that you say that. Is we work with a lot of MSPs, and they almost want their employees to fail. They want them to fail, and I get why, because you want to roll out training and you want to show value, right? Look, we need this, but at the same time, from an employee perspective, it can't just be negative. That's why, as they watch more of our weekly trainings and they do certain activities, their ESS goes up. We want to give them the ability to increase their score and show progress, because no employee wants to cause a data breach, right? No one wants to be, oh, I'm the guy who caused ransomware, and a data breach. So you really have to take that perspective from the employee. Okay, we're doing this, we're measuring you. How do we make it fun? How do we make it the ability that you can increase your score? And then also from management, we don't want to just penalize it. We really want to secure these employees. How do we do that? So, when you start talking about humans, you have to be very careful, right? And you want them motivated. You also want to make sure that they don't become a liability to you. So unlike technology, put it in, you just want it to run, right? As humans, you have to have a much softer approach to that.
Yeah. Well, it's how long does it typically take an employee to go through the programs that are presented every month? Is there different levels, or can you give me some feedback on that?
So, what we have is multiple aspects, right? So, we have our annual training. So that's where we want employees, when they first get involved with the program, they take their annual training. But then what we do is we send out each week a micro training. It's a video, usually about 1 minute to 2 minutes, and they take a micro quiz. So it's continuous. So every week they're getting something. And at the same time, our partners can send out simulated phishing, which, if they fall for it, they go through a 3-minute training. So it really, it's an interesting question, Brian. I'm just going to call you out for it. All right. How long does it take? Well, it takes forever, so to speak, meaning it's short amount of time to take training, but training never ends, right? You think about it. In school, you don't go through training and say, oh, I've got the first grade, I'm done. What it is continuous training. Now, what we do in very small bite-sized nuggets, right? To make sure that it doesn't consume, every week you're going to take a 25-minute class. Well, no one's going to do that. But it is continuous training in very small increments. And what you're doing is you're continuing to strengthen that employee and educate that employee, because what they may have known in January, but think about what they knew in January isn't what they have to worry about today, right? They didn't have to worry about
It was a
all
different
these
world
scams.
back then, wasn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. And cyber criminals are some of the most well-paid jobs in the world, and they keep evolving. This is billion-dollar business. I mean, it's probably $1 trillion business. They're just going to get better and better. So you're going to have to keep educating each of those employees, because, otherwise they'll be thinking about something else and they're going to fall for some scam.
Yeah. No, the reason I bring that up is heard sometimes as well. We don't want our employees doing all of this stuff, and it's not part of their. It's literally minutes a month that they have to invest, and they got to remember it as an investment, not as time spent.
But you know what? It's funny what you said is exact. You go back to the question: what is some of the barriers of adopting training? Exactly what you said. My employees are busy. They don't have time for this. Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly
you're on Facebook for 2 hours, but other than that.
Right. I mean, this is a short amount, but you also don't have time to fight a ransomware attack, right? So exactly. You have to balance that. Okay, it's not a whole lot of time, and yet, this will protect the company just as much as, if not more than some of the technology we've rolled out.
Yeah. I kind of alluded to it like driver training when you've got people who are driving all the time too. It's like, yeah, it takes time, but isn't it better if they're not getting in accidents? And
exactly.
A, they're alive, which is an important part, but B, how much damage is caused and time is spent when you have even a minor accident with a vehicle.
Exactly. But the time, it's a good question, because you want to make sure that client doesn't think this is going to get in the way of productivity. This is, and it's, if it's too long, employees will get bored. We try to make it interesting, engaging, and in bite-sized pieces that is easily to consume.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And the gamification part would definitely help, especially from the younger perspective. I would think it may be challenging to those of us who are, getting a little grayer as we go. Yeah. But you know what? Hey, I'm pretty flexible with those things.
Totally. They actually say younger people are less secure because they're used to sharing so much information, and they don't actually have they take some more risks. So, I think you have to look at the your total population of employees and worry about all of them, to tell you the truth.
Well, and it's, you don't want to generalize anyway, because there's people in every category that are different personalities and everything. Right. But so let's talk about quickly the problem child. What about those that are not adhering to it? They're avoiding all of the responsibilities they have in cyber training.
This is a problem that our partners face all the time, because they see this employee hasn't taken any of the trainings and they're falling for phishing, and what you really have to do is use that information. Clearly you want to talk to that employee and get them going, but what you really have to do is take that information and go back to management and say, this employee is not doing anything here. They're not really taking this seriously. Two things. One, I need your support. I need you to talk to them just like you would, about other subjects that employees need to, comply with. But at the same time, this is the risk. This is the risk that you and I, right, share. You as my client, me as an MSP, we share this risk because this employee is not taking this seriously. They're going to fall for a scam. I'm going to get a call at 9 o'clock at night on a Friday that you've been hit with ransomware, and I'm going to have to, fix your network for the next 3 days, right? So it really, you have to get management support here, because you can tell the employee you need to take this training. It's when they don't. You need the client saying, if you want to have a job, you need to take this seriously. Same thing with other training, HR training, and those type of things. Management requires you to take that type of training. So you really want to use those analytics, that score and the risk level to take a look and see what that employee is doing, and also show, look, we talked to that employee, they are taking this more seriously, and then positive reinforcement on top of that.
So it's a lot like doing, network assessment, security assessment. It's an individual instead of a piece of the network or software or other things.
But again, you find an unpatched computer server, you patch it. You find an unpatched human, you have to figure out how can we patch them. You can't just apply it, right? They have to you have to figure out, again, you have humans with emotions, you have all of those pieces. You have to then, what motivates them to take this seriously, or what, negative reinforcement will threaten them to take this seriously, and which one will work, and so that's the challenge with humans.
And I'm not saying that this is something that applies everywhere, but those that typically don't follow the protocol on one thing are probably not following their protocol on many other of their job responsibilities. And so it's one more thing to bring to light for.
It's funny that you say that, because when you're having a conversation with a client, and you start talking about employee mistakes, they know what you're talking about. It may not be security, but it could be the way they talk to a customer or another employee, or not coming to work. So when you say employees make mistakes, management realizes that's true. And we have good employees and we have bad employees, and even the good employees make mistakes. So using that messaging and then applying it to cybersecurity, it seems to work.
Very good. Well, I know cyber training, is just one of the security measures that need to be implemented and also followed, prescribed very closely. What other support services should MSPs be providing to reduce the risk profile for companies with more of a remote workforce now?
Yeah, well, two-factor authentication. You look at training employees, two-factor authentication, better password management, dark web monitoring to make sure that that employees understand where their passwords are, and teaching them not to reuse those passwords. If you look at those pieces to begin with, training employees, dark web monitoring, and then two-factor authentication, password management, that will go a long way to lower the risk. You start to look at disaster recovery. And I say this may be the greatest time to sell disaster recovery, because in the past, clients would say, well, I don't need disaster recovery. That's not going to happen to me. Well, it just happened to you. You sent all your employees home. And so now, can we, if we go back to the office or partially go back to the office, are we prepared with a full-blown disaster recovery, program? Are we ready to implement it? Will it not be a scramble next time? So, I think that is another piece. And then I also think that MSPs are starting to look at like managed security operations centers and helping them, with monitoring some of these endpoints at home, the office, mobile devices. I think that MSPs should be looking at some of those managed SOCs as well.
Oh, very good advice. Excellent. Unfortunately, we always have too much fun here, Al. Art, we're blown through our 30 minutes, and
sorry, I talk a lot.
Sorry
about that.
No, it's great information. But any final thoughts before we end today?
No, the only thing is, I think this is it's an unsettling time for everyone. If you're an MSP and supporting SMBs, it's very unsettling. You don't know whether they're going to get paid. At the same time, I think this is a great opportunity for MSPs, to help clients move employees, work office, work from home, the whole helping them understand what their options are from a hybrid point of view, securing them. This is a chance to, I think there's a shifting dynamic with SMBs. There's a great opportunity for MSPs to be, out in front and being a technology leader, and advisor to a lot of clients. So I look at it as a great opportunity for MSPs, and one that they should really be planning for now, and working in working in the weeds right now, but also planning how am I going to help these clients transition long term.
No, I agree. I think the work from home situation is a perfect opportunity for the MSP community, especially those that are more flexible. So,
yep.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say a big thank you to today's special guest on the Secure Connections podcast, Art Gross of Secure Now. Be sure to stop back weekly for other great channel cybersecurity discussions, and check out all of our MSP-focused resources at iota.com. Have a safe and secure day. Thank you.
Take care.